do have a motion. I would move that we support the 2 of the 3 exceptions that they're requesting based on what I received from the community, which is not in support of the parking, but the other 2.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
What, can you state them?
Yes. It is, code, or the number 320.2 is for the use variance, and then there's a special exception for, 320.2 is for the size. And not in support of 703.2A.
So can you restate your motion, including that for the secretary?
So I move that we support the applicant's request for a special exception for, use variance 320.2D and for special exception for 320.2. Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any other discussion, commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Henderson?
I think that the Office of Planning's recommendation for the 3 units is worth discussing further, and I'd like to ask Mr. Shropshire, you know, what is the breadth of the discussion that your community had, and did they have any objections, and what is your reaction to the Office of Planning's recommendation in light of what's presented here?
So the initial conversation that we had with Mr. Bareford, there were concerns about, never really about the internal, space. It was more about parking. It's always been more about the parking issue. So there was really, I think that the Office of Planning has made this recommendation because based on what the regulation states, and that's the recommendation that they are providing, and they are skilled and experienced with this information to know enough about how to propose these recommendations. So, the community was not opposed to the conversion of 2 units to 4 as long as it wasn't affecting the external, building, parts of the building. And yesterday when we met, the community seemed quite supportive of what he was proposing, with the exception of still their concerns about parking.
Thank you.
Okay.
One lingering concern. You live pretty close to this area. If they were to pop this thing up to 35 feet and move it backwards, which seems unlikely,
Well, they never
aesthetically.
suggested moving it backwards. They
Oh,
just-
okay, but I'm just asking hypothetically, if they did both, do you think it would cause any concerns amongst the constituents or neighbors?
It may
Such
cause
as area-
concern, it may have concerns, but, by regulation and by right, they can do that.
Yeah, I understand they're allowed to do that. DC moved it down from 40 feet to 35 about 2 years ago. But my concern is, do you feel your constituents would be bothered by it being raised or moved back?
So the general gist of I don't know how many people have been on Holbrook Terrace, but Holbrook Terrace is a narrow street. It's becoming a more densely populated street because there, not only, is this becoming like an increased unit building, there are other, developments on that street. So neighbors are genuinely concerned about development on the street because it used to be more residents. It's multiple units there, but by converting other buildings into multiple units, there is a genuine concern naturally for height increases, for expansions, for anything, but there's also regulations. So property owners have a right to do it. So when it's brought to us, we have to look at the regulations as well as the community concerns. So that's the best thing that that's the best way I can respond.
And just follow, like Commissioner Butler, in the neighborhood, parking is becoming a premium.
Yeah.
It's just really, we see people park and walk and, use other venues So, that's,
I have to say that with this particular property, with the DDOT report, they did do their assessment, and it's like it's really not any space to put parking there. So, I think that's why DDOT didn't have, based on their report, they didn't really raise any major concerns with this, because given the space of the way the property is constructed, there's just not any place to put it. But I have to report that the community were concerned about parking, so.
any more discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of Commissioner Shropshire's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. That's two.
Can you do a roll call, cause I didn't hear?
Was this motion second?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shropshire,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Present, and I abstain.
Commissioner Henderson,
Opposed?
Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Bugs.
Commissioner Buggs, yes. It was 3-1.
3-1-1.
It passed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that was the last item on our agenda. So I will make a motion to move that the meeting be closed with one exception. Oh,
Did you not want to let Lionel or,
is that from the mayor's office?
yeah,
I thought, well, did anybody from the mayor's office wanna say anything?
he's standing right out there.
Well, cause I'm,
Now on Rogers.
I can't, I thought, I could get emails from them.
Well, you were asking if they wanted to share anything.
Almost missed your chance.
Yes, I'll just, mention three things that's in the mayor's budget. May 2017, the mayor has their third annual innovation, where it's focused on, highlighting entrepreneurs and businesses in the city. And they had a event downtown, a lot of, local DC residents and, upstarts. Also, it was also part of a bigger program, at Howard University's campus. We launched the first inclusive innovation incubator, and that's focused on getting especially those underrepresented communities in tech, because in the city we have 10 to 30,000 plus jobs in the STEM field, and we're really trying to incentivize residents to go there. Also part of the mayor's budget, she's going to be starting the infrastructure academy, so working with DC Ward, Washington Gas, labor unions, and other utilities, Verizon, Pepco, getting residents certified or trained in certain areas, especially in construction. Because as you know, there's lots of development around the city, and we want residents to take advantage of that. Also, the mayor put $15.3 million in the budget to increase the number of seats in childcare centers, 1,300, and also certified 300 currently childcare workers and get them certified, because we have the education department in the city that deals with children. They must be certified and trained. And also the Office of State Superintendent of Education, we're going around and monitoring and evaluating those programs and checking to see if they're doing what they say they will do, and verifying those programs. Now, some of the facilities will be on DC government property, like off of South Dakota Avenue, the UDC campus, the Backus campus. Another will be in UDC's campus, Connecticut Avenue. But also, a part of that $15 million will be to augment current childcare centers in communities. So whether parents want to go to a community center in their neighborhood or use a government facility, they'll have that choice. Because childcare costs have risen very rapidly, and not only is the mayor going after housing affordability, childcare is very important because we want residents to grow their families, their incomes, and in education is very important, because the mayor, a part of the $15.3 million will fund it's a website, thriveby5.dc.gov, and the first few years of a child's life is very important. that they're learning, they're reading, they're engaging, talking. So I'll just keep it at that, and I'll pass out this flyer. And on the back, the front, we'll talk about the education investments. On the back, we'll talk about the $4.5 million that went into the DC Office on Aging. So the mayor is focused on children, the mayor is focused on education and jobs, but also for seniors that have lived here for a very long time, they'll be able to make upgrades to their home. Now, I said that it was one caveat that a lot of the program is income based. So if you have work that you make quite a bit of money, you might not apply, but we've heard a lot of comments from seniors that they might barely meet that threshold. So what happens to them? You know, they might have had a good federal government job, they have a good retirement package or pension, but how can we help them? Because this city is becoming more costly. But I know the mayor said that she'll look at either subsidies or some type of program. So that's coming down the pipeline. Do you all have any questions for me? I know I said a mouthful. No?
Okay. Any other, for the mayor's office? Very good. So I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting, but before we adjourn the meeting, I want to remind everybody that Sunday is Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. And I will be with my mother.
And I appreciate that. Before we adjourn, can I just give a shout out to Hakeem Rogers and Lionel Gaines? You are the two best mopers in the city, really. You really do a wonderful job. Thank you.
So we can adjourn. Thank you.